Hello, my name is Charlie, and this is an art lesson. Today we're going to talk about creating a warm-up drawing to loosen up those drawing muscles and to prepare your mind for creating some amazing art. Let's get started. I have a flat surface and 5 pieces of paper, a pencil sharpener, some good light, and I also have an eraser with me, but we're not going to be using this today because we're not making art, we're just warming up our drawing muscles. So flex your hand a little bit, shake it out, get a nice loose grip on your pencil, and we're going to start moving those arm muscles. If you tighten up your grip and hold the very tip, you are not loosening up your arm muscles. You will make a very tense and pinched drawing. We're going for loose lines and lightly touching the paper. First, I'm going to start by drawing what I call the biggest potato. And I'm just making a boundary around the drawing space of the paper. And my pencil is driving around the racetrack as fast as it can go without going off the page, and it's just barely touching the paper. This helps set your mind to the good space that you have to work in. And it reminds you to use those arm muscles for drawing, not those tiny little finger muscles. This is a diagonal. For a right-handed person, drawing lines along this diagonal might feel very comfortable and give you a lot of control. If you're left-handed, it might go the other way, from the other corner to the other corner. Here I'm putting some dark marks along the edges of the paper, just to get my mind memorizing where the edges are. And I'm going to divide the paper horizontally into thirds, and then vertically into thirds. If you look carefully, you'll see 9 squares. This next exercise is called the biggest S, and again, it's the largest S I can draw on my paper without going off the sides. This kind of flow back and forth really helps your body get used to drawing. After you draw that large, loose S, you'll have 2 spaces that are empty. I'm going to draw a couple circles in this area, very loosely, sketching them in. And I'm going to use these later as spaces to fill in. I actually think they're kind of too big, so I'm going to make some smaller ones. And that's the first step to warming up those arm muscles. Now I'm going to start working on getting used to the different marks that a pencil can make. In this circle, I'm using hatches, which are just lines. And I'm trying to make the value get darker and darker as it goes into the middle of the circle, with a lighter value on the edges. In this circle, I'm going to think of a new texture, and here I'm just doing little curly lines, like lots of O's all together, maybe a spring or a spiral. And in this circle, I'm trying to make the outside darker, and it will get lighter as it goes into the inside, but I'm only using this little spirally shape to fill it in. When you're doing this on your own, you can draw almost anything you'd like on your page. These are just some recommendations that I find useful. I know I'm making good progress because my pencil has a flat side on it now from all that drawing. If I were working on a finished art piece, I might use an eraser to lighten up the inside of these. But this is just a warm-up, so let's not worry about fixing it. Don't do that now. We're just loosening up those arm muscles. So you're welcome to sketch or scribble anything you would like on this page. I like to fill up the different squares with different marks. Here again, I'm using hatches, which are just short lines. If you practice making hatches a lot, that's a great technique for filling in spaces on your finished drawings. These are very loose and rough looking. Maybe up here I will try to make some shaded values look very smooth, going from dark to light. I really like doing that, and it's a great practice, so I'm going to do some more. And this time I'm going to start very dark, pressing hard. There's another way to shade in an area, and that's something you might have heard of called stippling. That's where you make little dots, little tiny dots, one at a time to fill up a space. That's a great technique for finished art pieces, but when we're doing warm-up drawings, it has a tendency to make you focus closer and closer to the tip of the pencil, and pretty soon your hand is getting cramped up, and you're not loosening up those muscles like you were before. So let's not try and do too much of that. If you'd like to do something similar, you can hold the pencil a little further back loosely, and letting your hand bounce up and down, try to get this pencil to whack onto the paper and make short little lines. This is a fun way to draw, although I don't have a lot of control exactly where each line goes. If you'd like to draw fur or fuzz or hairy things, and it takes a lot of practice, so that's something you can do. I'm using my wrist muscles and my arm muscles, not my finger muscles here. Making a warm-up drawing is a great way to warm up your body for drawing. A way that I like to warm up my mind is to look at other people's art in some drawing books. Here we see a very loose drawing by Paul Klee, a Swiss painter and sculptor. You can see that Klee is practicing and arranging these faces and shapes in a way that seems pleasing to the eye. He's not worried too much about making a finished piece. It's just a warm-up sketch. I'm sure that he held his pencil very lightly and went over and over these areas, just working out his ideas. That's a great way to warm up. Here we see some cat sketches. This is a wild cat. That's why they look fairly ferocious. You can see the artist is looking at this cat from many different angles and trying to get different parts of their anatomy or their body parts and the shapes that they take when they are in different positions. This is another way to warm up. Just practice drawing what you would like in your final art piece over and over again. Here is another example of an animal study. This time the artist is drawing turtles. These are the kind of turtles that swim in the water and have long necks. And again, you see the different angles and different shapes, and there's special attention to the more complicated or strange shapes. Here we have a sketch of a tree by Piet Mondrian. He has drawn the tree as just a series of lines, and you can still see the central strong trunk climbing up into the sky, and the lines come together to form an arch or part of a circle that gives it a lot of strength. And up on top, we can imagine these branches are stretching towards the sky. Here we see some botanical or plant drawings made by an artist. I really like these because you can still see a lot of the planning that went in to make this drawing. The early shapes and sketches that were rejected. You can see the structure. There's columns here of berries that are then filled up later with the shapes that make the berries themselves. Here we have some other plant drawings, and these are again sketches made for practice. And you can see these tall columns that make the general shape of the drawing, and they are then filled up with all the details that make the actual plant, like the leaves, climbing up. This drawing also has a great sense of space. I can see things close up, the main plants, and then some other things in the distance that gives the viewer an idea that it exists in three-dimensional space. Here we see a drawing of a chair by Vincent van Gogh. This chair is made up of curved lines and has a lot of character. It might not be the most comfortable chair, but it looks like it's been around for a long time. Here we have two portraits of sleeping people. I like these drawings because I can see the individual pencil marks that make up the bigger compositions. I also like them because when I'm looking at them, my attention is drawn into the very middle of the drawing, where most of the interesting things are happening. As we move out of the middle of the drawing, it becomes less resolved. That is, the artist didn't work so hard to finish these hands as he did with the face. It really brings the attention to the middle. Another way to prepare for a drawing is to do some research. I told you last time we would be drawing a Stegosaurus. So I'm going to look in this encyclopedia, Illustrated Encyclopedia of Dinosaurs, to find pictures of a Stegosaurus. And I learned here that they come in several different varieties. And I'm looking very closely at these pictures to see how these legs bend, to see how the tail is raised up and not dragging along the ground. I noticed this skeleton drawing has long parts on the backbone that are not evident in this artist's illustration. The Stegosaurus had very strong back legs that helped it rear up on its hind legs. I'm going to try to include that in my drawing. I don't know what's going on with this Stegosaurus. He looks like a potato or something. Not a big fan of that drawing. Under this book, you'll see my drawing that I made of a Stegosaurus. I tried to capture all the details I learned in my research. Still not quite sure what their toes look like, but I like how the tail is raised up, and at the end, these spikes are called the thagmizer, and that's for defense. Well, that's all I got for you today. I know we spent some time warming up, but it's an important part of preparing yourself to create fine art without becoming frustrated. I hope you find the time to practice about half an hour every week to do drawing, and maybe you can plan an art show for your family. Until next time, it was a pleasure and a privilege, and I enjoyed it to the utmost.